How's everyone doing? Good. All right. Today, I am going to be talking about invisible by design. Thank you for attending my talk. All right. So, I was in a recent conversation, and I was asked, "What do I do for a living?" Or "What do I do for work?" And it's a question that I've been asked quite a few times. And my response is usually, I design interfaces for video games. And how do you do that is what they asked. And it was a follow-up question that I was not prepared for. Usually it trails off, and the person's usually confused. But my response was, I make art and animations that help guide the player through the experience. This was way more information than I usually provide as an answer, but I went for it. And their response was, technical difficulties here. A process commonly referred to as user interface design. But their response was, what? And there's when I noticed their confusion, and I knew I lost them, as I had many times before when answering the same question from friends and family. And if you're in this field, you know what those confusion looks like. But there were blank stares, like this. And I was instantly, I'm contemplating if I should go deeper or not. But a resounding cool came from them. And I gave them a thanks immediately. But deep down, I really wanted to go into why buttons behave the way that they do. But I'm glad to be here today because I get to do that with everyone here. Hello again, welcome, and thank you for attending my talk on Invisible by Design, which is crafting player experiences with UX UI. All right, I think I got all my nervousness out here. I'm gonna try to roll through this a little bit better. All right, so today, here's an overview. I'll give a self-intro of myself, talk about some of my experience, my approach to how I design when thinking about interface design, how I apply this approach to my work, and then at the end, we'll take some questions. All right, so, hey, that's me right there. My name's Lionel Cornelius Jr. I'm a UX UI director at Epic Games Psyonix in the San Diego location. Quick disclaimer here, I am representing myself and how I approach interface design, not how Epic Games approaches interface design. The work I am showing today is most of my past work, none of the new stuff, unfortunately. NDAs and stuff prevent me from showing you guys all of the fun stuff. Not that this stuff isn't gonna be fun, but it's not as new as this new stuff. So, all right, so some education. What did I learn? So I went to school for graphic design, studied Photoshop and Macromedia, if anybody knows what Macromedia is. This was before it was Flash. I learned about print, mostly, and some digital design. It was very early. I think I learned about animating some stuff in Macromedia. It was really, really cool. From there, I went to study studio art. I learned traditional 3D, which is wood carving and clay, 2D art, photography. When it was film, it was the last film photography learnings that I ever took, and then some painting. I was on this path to becoming a true artist, as one of my teachers told me, which was living in the forest and painting happy little trees. And then I had a small pivot away from education. It was time to work. So fast after graduation, I entered the job market as a production artist for an advertising agency. And I thought that this was the dream. I was doing art, I was using Photoshop and making ads. But the work I was getting was not rewarding. It wasn't artistic enough. And I was merely scratching the surface as a digital designer. The era of Flash website intros was booming, and I wanted a really large part of it. I studied ActionScript at night, built ads in the day, and made Flash intros in the weekend. Is anybody familiar with Flash intros? I feel like I'm speaking in one person, there we go. A couple more people, all right. Oh boy, this is ancient. But those Flash animations still weren't satisfying that design hunger that I had. Plus, Flash was dying anyway. We'll come back to this. So I went back to school for animation and visual effects this time. So for my master's, I wanted to become a concept artist and work in animation and do a lot of drawing so I could work at Disney. I think that's everyone who wants to do this, right? Disney. During my master's, I picked up 3D modeling, storyboarding. Man, I really wish I had that clicker. Animation. But school was great, but I needed to make some money. I had bills to pay, and going to school just wasn't going to be able to cut it for me. So I freelanced as a web designer while studying 3D modeling and animation. During that time, I popped on many, many different projects. I took on every gig that I could. Advertising and marketing, whoops, a little too fast there. Tech R&D companies, game marketing, and retail. None of this was as exciting as it looks, or maybe it was as exciting as this looked, just text on the screen. And e-commerce. Some of the clients that I worked with, or as I worked with them, I was able to develop a different skill from each one of those experiences. Life Fitness is one of those clients. There I learned how to design on different devices, so workout gear, treadmills, ellipticals, just everything in the gym. At Samsung, it was pure research and development. It was madness. We were kicking out projects, I want to say like every week, only to see them hit the dumpster, because if they didn't go to full Samsung production, you didn't see it. One of the most memorable ones, though, for me, was an app that we designed to work with a treadmill. You'd run on it, and you'd get this screen that showed the environment as you were running. Sounds like something that is currently out there right now, and I wonder if that's where that idea came from. Go-Go Air was another one. This was when responsive website designs, was a thing. We had to build an asset for each individual device. It was a lot of work. Claire's, I don't know if they have Claire's here, but Claire's was a retail store. And the thing I learned there the most was organization. We had to have things ready for the seasons or before the seasons. There was a very rigid structure, taught us how to be quick, fast, but also efficient. I got a lot of these things. JCPenney was another one. This was the most boring job that I've ever had in my life. I fell asleep in many of the meetings, but the thing I learned there was how to UX. They had a very, very good UX team. We used Axure at the time to prototype and do A/B testing. It really showed me the difference between being a UI artist and a UX designer. All right, we're at another pivot here. And I think this was JCPenney's fault. I realized I did not like corporate design. And I needed something more fun and challenging. So after I received my master's, I started crafting a portfolio for a 3D character artist gig. Because after all, that was my goal when I went back to school. Was do characters, do some fun stuff. But I failed really hard. I submitted, I don't know, thousands of applications. Thousands is exaggerating. Maybe there was 50. But I did this for years. And I couldn't get those hair cards to work. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with 3D, but making hair is super hard. And I just gave up. But I had a redeeming moment. A indie studio in Dallas, Texas, was looking for a web designer, which was a rare thing, at least at that time, for a game company to be looking for. And I thought that I could actually do that because I had been freelancing for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years or so by then. But with some persistence, I eventually got in as their web designer, and that is how I got my journey into becoming a UI artist in games. All right, so some of the projects that I worked on, coming from into games as an ex-web designer, I found that the skill sets were transferable in most places. Flash was heavily used, which I had no idea until I got in. And those long nights of learning ActionScript finally paid off. Goes back to Flash being dead there. The first project I worked on was Orcs Must Die. On Orcs, I did web designs, creative marketing art, key art, and social marketing. And a bit of UI implementation and optimization. The next project that I worked on was Quake Champions. This was with a company named id Software in Dallas, Texas. There was a lot of HUD work for multiple game modes on that one. Did a lot of implementation and optimization again, and kind of just explain a little bit about implementation optimization. We had lots of animations that were keyframed. If you any Flash users in here, the same people input? Oh my gosh, one. All right, so, well, you know about keyframes. They would have hundreds of keyframes for just an explosion, and I had to take those and distill it down so that it could run better in the game. And then the next project after that was Doom Eternal. Doom players? A lot of Doom players here. I appreciate you all. On Doom, I did a lot of the HUD work, lots of it, like all of it. For the animations, the implementation, not necessarily the design. At this point, I was the UI artist, so I wasn't leading all of the design decisions there, but I did work on like all of the little intricate details. Skipped ahead a little bit here. UI animation, and again, the global implementation of Doom. So the buttons, the menu animations and such, which I'll showcase some of that soon. And then the small menu systems. From Doom, I went over to a studio in San Diego named Psyonix and started working on Rocket League. Any Rocket League players? 1, 2, oh, I appreciate all of you. I have 2 games that people have played, it's great. It's a great feeling. There, I worked on large menu systems to start. And then I moved on to doing live feature maintenance. For me, this was very different from working on Doom and Quake, and even Orcs Must Die, because there's a lot of differences when working on a live feature game. A lot of different challenges, rather. And again, all of this was done in Flash. I was super surprised that Flash was used for this game. I was actually hoping that it wasn't being used for this game. But I came in and I had the experience from way back, and it worked out. Worked out so well that I went from a senior UI artist working on Rocket League to becoming the UX UI director for all of the products at Psyonix. So, what is a UX UI director? This is a question that I asked myself, or I was asking myself then, and I am still asking myself now, what does that mean? But if I had to explain it, I'd split the discipline up into 2 parts. Part 1 being UX design, which is commonly referred to as UX, which is a process in which wireframes, flows, interactive states, and prototypes are crafted to represent how people use a product. There's a bunch more with this definition, but I wanted to keep this a little short. I can probably elaborate a little bit later. But this is what I'm going to use while we're talking, while I'm within this talk. Part two, which is UI art, commonly referred to as UI. This is where the visuals are created. The artist takes what the UX designer has crafted as a guide and makes it pretty. Buttons, style guides, animations, and fonts are the bread and butter here. And when those two forces combined, you have UX and UX UI, UX slash UI. I promise this is not a typo. UX and UI, and UI slash UX. There are a bunch of these terms, but I typically, sorry, I went a little bit ahead, but they all pretty much mean the same thing to me. All right, so what does this combo team work on if there is a team? Are there any UI artists? All right. So maybe you all are familiar with not having two of these disciplines. It's just one person doing all of the stuff, sweating day and night, trying to get two jobs done with one person. But in some situations, there's a team. And in this case, those teams get to work on what's called the front end, which is everything located outside of the game. Some examples of that are the store and cosmetic management, which could be a locker or anything where you have cosmetics and you're managing all of your items. The other part of this is in-game. And these are, as it says, all of the things in-game. You have your HUD, there's some menu systems there, getting a little ahead of myself, and some game settings. There's a lot more to this, but these are just a couple of examples. And there's one more, inventory. All right, so my approach to interface design, for a long time I would just reference the competitors, look in the market and see what other people were doing, how they did it, but I don't remember the exact time when I stopped looking. Well, I shouldn't say stop. I started looking in other places for reference and inspiration. I think maybe it was that time I was using this elevator. The component was outside of the elevator, and I was stuck in the box, and I had no idea where I was going. There are some examples of some elevators that I've used. I'll just leave that there for a second. All right. But what I learned from this is that there were all kinds of places in the world, just in day-to-day activities, that I could solve UX problems just by looking at it and figuring out how can I make this better. One example of a real-world experience that speaks to me a lot is the storefront. As a designer, you design the door, the floor path, space for the shelves, where the logo goes, where the registers are placed, and how purchasing is performed. You design a full experience for the players. All right, sorry, I went a little ahead there. All right, so I'm gonna, oh, that's a blank screen. I'm gonna take this a little bit further. So the door. This is the user's or player's or shopper first entry point. It is often the first impression a business or a game will give to its customers or players. Door number one. What kind of store do you think this is? Anyone? You're the closest, so I'm just gonna pick you.
I mean, I can only assume a clown store.
All right. There it is. There we go. Clown store. That's perfect. All right, door number two. Anyone? I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Same clown store? All right. It's a shoe store. Who knew this was a nice shoe store? No one gets shoe stores here. All right. And then door number 3. One more time. Store, shop, what kind is it? McDonald's? Oh, I love the enthusiasm back there. It is obviously a Dior store. But thank you. I should have put McDonald's in there. Probably would have been a little bit more fun. All right, so let's skip. Oh, yeah. So yeah, for store number 3, this one has a seamless experience. It resonates the moment you start, except for that person back there that said McDonald's. I missed on that one. But this one starts with the door, and once you get inside, you experience the brand full and through. So experience 1. Just kind of dive into this a little bit more. The obvious, it was a clown store. The door was in line with the experience. There was some consistency there. There's a clown on the door. There are clown stuff inside. And if you were a clown, this is where you would go so that you can get clown stuff to do clown things. All right. And the next one. All right, so for experience 2, this was someone answered a non-existing store. That's probably what I would have guessed. I don't think I would have gone in there or gone towards that door at all. But this door was not indicative of what's inside. The outer presence was inconsistent with the things that were inside. And then there was experience number 3. This door and content, the door and content inside were matching, although I think I'll need to work on that image. That McDonald's answer is throwing me off. But for this, there was full consistency there. Logo on the front, elegant door in the front as well. When you went inside, there was elegance everywhere. I've never shopped at Dior, so I'm not really sure exactly how elegant it is, but for this example, I think this works. Yeah, so branded experience where the door matches interior and the entire experience is consistent. All right. Okay, so what does any of this have to do with UI? I had to add this slide here because I can go off the rails with my analogies, sometimes a little bit too far, too deep, and lose sight of what it is that I'm actually talking about. I'm going to throw some acronyms in here. IRL, UX, which is real-world experiences applied to the digital space. Again, looking at things in world, figuring out how it would solve it in world, and then taking those, like I said, methodology and applying to how I work in UX design. And sometimes these analogies help me think about all of the things that I need to make an experience. Experiences like number 3 is what I usually strive to go for, where everything is consistent. When the player goes in, they feel really good during that experience, and also when they leave that experience. All right, and as I said, the analogies help me figure out what it is that I'm building, especially when it comes to building systems. This is how I keep track of all the things that a game may need. Once I have a good idea of what is needed, I build Lego blocks that are reusable in many places to stub out designs. This method helps me build multiple store layouts. I'm using the store again as reference, rapidly before moving into anything further or complex. So the door as a system. In UI, this is for me, the buttons, the tiles, the loading screens, the key art. Here's an example of what I would use as a button. Pretty obvious, this is a button. And then this is an example of a tile. Again, this is a tile. And this is how I'll start my designs. I'll just throw things together and just label them exactly what they are before. I move on to adding any kind of art or any kind of dressing on there, or sites or anything. The floor path, rather, as a system. I categorize the game loop. Is anybody familiar with game loops? A couple of nods here, okay. The pass loop, think rocket pass or game pass or any of those passes. Every game has a pass. I don't know what they're called, but they're all called passes. The pass loop, the challenges loop. Oops, a little too fast there. And the challenges loop. Here are some game loop examples, how I lay them out. Again, starting really, really basic. I use a square, gray box square, call it the front end. You'd move from the game, from the front end to the game, from the game to the rewards, and then back from the rewards into the game again. So we create this loop where the player will play the game, get rewards, play the game again. Then there's the shelf space system. Oh, that one didn't do what I wanted to do. They're all there now. All right. The shelf space system, try to say that 3 times fast. It's game modes, training, and hubs. Again, there are a bunch of these. I'm just using a couple as examples to illustrate what these are. But this is where I would categorize these particular pieces of games. Some shelf space example. In this example here, the front end is the shelf. The game mode, the training, and the social hub or social spaces are the items that sit on that shelf. And then there is the logo system. This one could be the start screen, the loading screen, or the loading screen. Again, another example or at least the start screen here. It's a big gray box square. It says start screen. There's a big orange box there that says I'm a logo. I have to say this out loud. The UX part of my job when I start this can be super boring. There's no art. Being an artist myself, it took a long time for me to get past the gray boxes, what is this? It really was just about like, this is a thing, this is how you interact with it. All right, and then there's a purchase system. This is a big one. Their companies would love you to figure this out for them because this is how they make money. Categorized in the purchase system is the purchase paths, the content store, and currency, the many, many currencies that can be in games. Some examples again. All right, so in this example, I use a store as the shelf. There's an item that is in that store. You want to be able to check out while you're in that store. You want to be able to take the money. That player wants to be able to receive their item and then go into their game and use or play or do whatever it is that they want to do with that item that they've purchased. This is an honorable mention. I kind of threw this in last minute. It came from a conversation that I was having with some coworkers about friction. In UX design, there's unwanted friction, there's wanted friction. Unwanted friction is the thing that just happens to happen sometimes. There's tech limitations. Could be anything, could be bad design. Don't tell anybody I said that. But intentional friction is the one that I want to talk about, which can be had with modals, confirmations or confirmation modals, EULAs, and I keep getting that blank screen. All right, and EULAs. Oops. Some intentional friction, or intentional friction as an example. Again, using the gray box layout. And using the purchase path as an example. So at the moment you're checking out, we pop up a modal and ask if you are sure if you want to buy this item. We do this because we don't want people to accidentally buy things. We want to make sure that they are making the purchase of the item that they want. There could be various other reasons, but this intentional friction allows the player to think about the thing that they're, or user player, think about the thing that they're purchasing, and then confirm that they want to add that item into their inventory for their game. All right. So let's talk about application and the way that I have used these methodologies in my work. Doom Eternal. So this was the start screen for Doom Eternal. There were some Doom players here, right? I was unable to get the animation to work on this one, so it is not working the way that I would like. But this thing had a nice little TV scan animation, which set the tone for the game. That animation was continued throughout the game in all of the different places where we animated things, really. Here on the main screen, this is where I call out the buttons, part of the door system. At the time, it wasn't a door system. Like I said, I can't show you all the new stuff that I have, but I have to go back and reapply some of those things, and that's what we're doing right now. But these were the buttons that I worked with getting set up with the team. This was a modular button system that functioned across the entire game. The animations were global so that it was consistent. Here's those buttons in action on the menu screen. There's a modal for confirmation, and then there's an animation that happens when that modal pops up, or any modal pops up. It's all continued throughout the game. And then this is part of the logo system. Again, the Doom Eternal logo on the front end screen, the main screen, after you press start and enter the game. Sadly, that animation was not there. Performance issues, which is always a thing with animation. Breaks my heart every single time because I want to animate everything, and the engineers hate it. All right, and then here's a very or medium low res GIF of the HUD and all of the things that were, almost all of the things showcasing on the HUD. When your health is low, when I don't have a pointer, but I'm just gonna come over here. When your abilities were ready after cooldown, I worked on the animations for those, the animations for the POEs, the warning animations, pretty much all of the animations on this screen. I'm gonna call out that I left the project early to go join Rocket League or Psionics. So there's some stuff was added after this. Some stuff they removed. I was a little salty about that. I'm not gonna lie. But for the most part, a lot of the stuff that I worked on is still there. So the challenges that I faced with this, I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep this looping, was that I had to make animations that were eye-catching, but also not distracting to the player. You don't want these things pulsing and hitting the player in the eye, taking their vision away from the center screen where all of the action is happening, because the first priority for this is that the player plays the game. These little animations and things outside, if you notice, a lot of them are on the peripheral here. They're only supposed to grab your attention and let you know that that thing is ready. And as you're playing with that game, or as you get used to playing with the game, you know that this blinking on the right of the icon is that ability, and then the one that goes on the left is the other ability. Again, you can do that without looking at the game because you get that peripheral blinking. Different from the ones in the middle here because these are supposed to take your attention away from the game because they're important. Your health is low. You need to go get some, what was it? Forget how you get health. Oh, the armor or health. It also flashed when you were low on gas, so you can go get that flamethrower and burn some demons. Yeah. And then this is a still shot of the HUD. Again, a lot of things would pop up on this HUD. There were the center messaging that would pop up in when you receive something, when you switch weapons, or things that popped up the screen. Just a ton of stuff on the screen. But I have to say, it was really, really fun to work on. All right. Now, for Rocket League, when I joined Rocket League, I was, again, just a senior UI artist. I say just because I felt like I was still learning. I took a lot of the learnings that I have from Doom and tried to apply those to what I was working on in Rocket League. Now, this is a completely different game, so I didn't have a HUD that had to have flashing or elements or all those things. So I approached it slightly different. And I'm actually not going to talk about the HUD. I'm going to talk about the large system that I worked with on Rocket League, which was the tournament system. So this was kind of my, I'd say, first time working on a system this large in games. It reminded me of web development in the fact that it had so many different pieces. This tournament system was a way for players to participate in pre-scheduled games that players did not have to create or manage. Previously, they had to create their own tournaments, manage them, and run them, and then send invites to let players know that they were working. And then when they were in the game, the players had absolutely no idea when those systems were even available to play at all. So this was a way to have an automated system that players didn't have to manage. Again, taking the door system analogy and applying that here, we have the tabs at the top, which allowed the players to go through different areas of that tournament system. We have the cards here that were built in a way that could be scaled across this system. So everything there, except for the key art, was reusable. Key art was able to be stubbed in into those reusable slots. And in that way, if we added another event, we could duplicate it easily. No engineers are here, right? Okay, cool. We could duplicate it easily, and then add art, and then change the string so that instead of saying 3v3 Rumble, it'd say 4v4 or something like that. And then an example of the floor path system is the notification that's up top right. I was able to take some of the learnings from Doom here, just animating in Flash, and then bringing that over here to create a notification that was, again, not distracting to the user, but it let them know that a tournament was either in place, going on, or that you can sign up. And this notification would pop up across the entire game as long as you had the notifications set up to receive them. All right, some takeaways here. All right, so this was passed on to me by a designer when I was working on, or working at GoGo Air. He said design on purpose, and I didn't know what that meant until he gave me some real harsh feedback. I gave him a design. He asked me what it was, and I said, I don't know. He's like, how do you design something if you don't know? So I started doing that after he taught me, and I spread this message to every designer that I meet. Know what you're building before you start designing. You could design the coolest door, but if it doesn't fit the target market, your clown supplies are not getting the traffic it could. I should have used Dior here because that one is the one that didn't resonate. Take chances. This is kind of my own thing here. Design for the product in front of you and not behind you. Again, going back to how I used to reference things, I'd reference things so heavily that my work would look like the stuff that I referenced. And it didn't always solve the problem that was in front of me. Use reference, but design for the specifics. And sometimes this requires bespoke designs to solve new problems. And then go with your gut. This is a new one. Make decisions and prepare for the results. Move forward with designs and learn from them. They may be wrong at first, but this is hard to discover if you don't move forward with something. Data, analytics, and references will not always provide the solution. Sometimes you have to put it out there and figure it out as you go. Right. I'll close this with, as designers, you design ways to transition players from one space to another. You design a series of pathways for people and how they use computers or consoles to interact with the game. And if you've done your job right, it's all, well, most of it is invisible. And that's it for today. Thank you. Thank you. Questions?
How come you decided to put the boost in Rocket League at the bottom left and not like at the center of the screen, like as a small bar, like for example the stamina in Zelda?
That is a great question, man. So when I joined Psyonix, that was the first question I asked. I was like, why is the boost all the way to the right of the screen? I have to look all the way over there, drive in the middle, hit the ball in the middle, my boost runs out, I'm all the way back on the right side of the screen. They've been arguing with me since I've joined for 6 years. It is still in the right side of the screen. It is now canon Rocket League that the boost meter is all the way on the right of the screen. At some point, I'm just gonna inch it over to the left each update until it's like right by the car, so you don't have to do that. It was a design decision before I got there, and I'm still fighting that fight.
Thanks.
I can give it back to you, D1. Sorry, you raised your hand first. Sorry. I'm just gonna give it back to him. Sorry. I don't feel comfortable asking my question.
Okay, specifically for me, I'm designing for VR mostly. And how would you, for example, approach a interaction in a space, designing transition through a space in VR specifically?
Oh, that sounds exciting. That's the toughest question I've gotten so far.
Okay.
VR is different because it's spatial. The menus can be anywhere. You have various different ways to interact with it. You have the controller. You can point anywhere. I think when I was researching this, so I had to research this for an interview for a VR company. I didn't get that job. And when I was researching it, I found one of the, I can't remember the name of the game, but the way that they used the menu system was really interesting. They had things that just float in space, and they were kind of contextual. So I didn't mention this in my talk, but contextual UI is my favorite type of design. The non-contextual stuff like the Doom Eternal HUD, just everything on screen just drives me insane. I only want to see things that are when I need them. I want to say Last of Us does a pretty decent job of this. Horizon has customizable Horizon Zero Dawn has customizable settings where you can set things to be contextual or not. But in the case of VR, yeah, because you can just have things anywhere.
Yeah, my question would be, would the design principles that you promoted still apply in some way, or have you experienced otherwise in that sense?
I think they would. So you'd have your in-game. Well, actually, everything can be in-game at this point. So you have your front end, you have your game settings. Everything can all live inside of that one space. You can still think of each system as like a door system, a logo system. The logo system could apply to like, I said Rocket Pass, but I keep saying Rocket Pass because I work at Rocket League. A pass system could have an identity of its own, so you could still apply that methodology there. I think all of this can be applied in any situation where you're using UX or you're trying to move a player from one space to another, especially, again, the floor path system.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Hello. Hi. Sorry.
Ooh.
All right. So, are you or your team involved in like decisions to choose what font to use for UI? And if so, what's your process of choosing different fonts?
Man, this is a great question. These are great questions. Fonts. I love fonts, man. It's like the first thing I look at when I start designing. I'm like, where's the font? Why are we using Arial? This is ugly. So I actually am responsible for choosing the fonts. I can't talk about the new project as much, but I can talk about the font process and what we did. We actually hired a font designer this time. Rocket League has its own, or It's kind of a custom font. It's made by someone, but we purchased it. It has license. If you know anything about fonts and licenses, you either have to renew them or they're weird. We had a license for the bold one, but not the italic. So we couldn't use italic. We only had to use bold. And I was like, why are we doing this? So we contracted a font designer, and he designed every single font for us and gave us full license for it. I can give you the name of that person later. But that is a process that we went through. I didn't have it on here as for the presentation because I probably would have gone a lot longer. But Rivian is another reference that I look at. They design their own font. They've included it with their branding. So anytime you see their product, it is using their font. It's no one else's. So that is what I usually try to go for in games. It is really difficult to do that, to convince a company, a game company, like, hey, you should have your own font for your game that's licensed to your game. This is your everything. I think that answered your question.
It did. Follow-up question. Do you think, I don't want to be spicy, but do you think Rocket League made that decision because it's a live game?
The font that they have now, or the
No. The route that to hire a font designer to design a whole font for.
why did we make that decision? It was a couple of reasons. One of them I can't tell you. The other one I can is just because we couldn't use italic and or we couldn't use the variations of the font, and it limited me from being able to design different parts of the screen to make it feel different, but also not lose the characteristics of the game. There was another part in there. The other part is that for Flash, a UE3, you're limited in the fonts that you can use. So we wanted to have a font that you can use for subtitles, headers, but then also have a font that's legible. In Rocket League, we have 2 or 3 different fonts that I'll be using. Again, this drives me nuts. 2 or 3 different fonts, one for visual flair and then one for legibility. And it's really hard to keep track of having all of these fonts. Plus, there's new technology where you can have variable fonts now, which is the new font that we just had created. It's a variable font. There's so many. I haven't even designed all of the things that I can do with that font. And it's just one font, and it just has all of the characteristics. So,
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
any...
Okay, so I'm just part of the support team, but I also listened, and I wanted to ask if, sorry, did you ever include sound design in a HUD so that the screen, for example, wouldn't be as cluttered as you thought? For example, Doom Eternal was. So I don't know, like the sound when you have low health, like ding, ding, ding. If you just remove the logo but communicate to the player that that's the sound you need to hear for that.
Absolutely. I did a horrible job of representing the sound team in this one. I completely removed them. I'm glad you asked that question. So with Doom, we had an amazing sound team, sound designer. It's hit or miss. Some things will get designed without sound in mind at first. When I started, I had to do everything when I was working on my portfolio. So I would make a button, I make the states, and then I make the sound. And when I got into games, they're like, just make the buttons. I was like, what about the sound? They'll get to it later. So we make our pass. Sound would see our concepts. But what I try to do now is that I'll make a concept in that gray box form that you see, make all the states. I'll give the sound team the gray stuff, and they'll make sounds based off of like the animation states that I have there. So by the time it all comes together, sound isn't lagging behind, and then the art isn't lagging behind, and it all kind of like magically comes together at the end. But yeah, for some, sound isn't considered in the beginning. Some things are way more important for sound. So like usually with like transition screens and then the loading screens, sounds all over those. HUD stuff, yeah, they're usually in those too because that's a really, really big, important part of the game.
Thank you. Any more questions? Oh, yes.
Hi there. How does your iteration process typically look like?
Long and excruciating and painful.
Where do you start? Do you look for some references in other games or just talk with your team, brainstorm?
Yeah. For some things, I go all the way back to like just mind mapping. I'll come up with a word and then we'll throw some stuff together. There's the gray box process where, as I showed here, I might get a game design doc, which is what I usually receive from the game designers. They'll say, hey, we want this system to do this. And I'll say, cool. I don't think we can do all of that. But I won't tell them that immediately. I'll just gray box it out and say, okay, this is what I think is the system that would work. I'll give them a prototype, let them, mess around with it, and they'll say yay or nay. It's never just a yes. It's always a, well, maybe it can be this. Some features, like the tournament feature that I was just showing for Rocket League, that one took me 6 months to get out the door. Design, iterations over and over and over again. Prior to that, they had been working on that feature for a year and a half. So that feature took about, 2 years to come out the door. It was bad. Not every feature is like that, though. That one was just a really, really robust feature. Some things can take anywhere between 1 to 3 months to complete. It just really depends on how large the feature is.
All right, thank you.
Okay. We're at questions. I don't have anything else after this, so if people have more questions, then I can stay and answer them gladly.
Yeah. Thanks for presentation. I often read through many job descriptions opening, such as we are hiring UX designers or UI UX designers, but we want you to be familiar with engines, Unity, Unreal, or have some experience for illustration, paintings, etc. Even for UX designer positions. Is it very common thing when it comes to game production teams, or do you think is often misused, the term UX designer, or is this different between, for example, some live service game like Rocket League? You certainly need more UX input, while other AAA games, from the beginning, you might need more visual input simultaneously with some UX, I guess. So I often confused when I read those descriptions online. So I just want to hear your opinion or thoughts about this.
Oh yeah, I can talk about this for days. So it depends on a lot of things. I like you, when I was starting out looking for UX, UI, I was very confused on what any of those meant.
Exactly, I could imagine.
Yeah. I was a web designer. It was very straightforward, web designer. I designed stuff and I gave it to a web developer, and they would implement it and they would show it to me and I'd say yes or no. Very simple process. I'm oversimplifying how simple the process is, but very simple in comparison to games. I came into games. I saw UX as a description, UI as a description. As I showed up there was tons of different posts that said UX, UI, and they all had like similar things. For me, when I am looking for UX designers, UI artists now, and I feel comfortable saying this now, it really just depends on what the role is for. I am currently encouraging my UX designers to get familiar with the engine for one big reason. That is where the product is going to live. So if you know how you're going to design for something and you know where it's going and you know how it works, not that you need to go in there and implement it and you need to write code and if you're using UMG, blueprints and all that stuff, it's not that. It's more so being familiar with like how it works. And when you're designing, you're not designing a design that has like glows in it, because Unreal doesn't really support glows like that. So you don't want to put that in there because then it's not going to look like the final product when it gets in there. For UX designers that are starting out, the expectation of them knowing Unity and UMG and UX design and UI art and painting. It took me years to get there. When I started looking, I had about, I don't know, 2 or 3 years in web design. I couldn't get a job in UI design, but I kept going in different places, learning different skill sets. Each place that I went used UX design in a different way. So by the time that I did apply to a game job, I had all of these different skill sets that I could bring with me, and it made me more valuable to the hiring companies, because if they needed me to make some art, I had a little bit of art background. But again, this was at like an indie studio, and an indie studio, you're probably going to wear a lot of hats. And somewhere like Epic, we have specialized UX designers, which I never really worked with before because I was doing everything myself. So our UX designers, they know UX. A lot of them have worked in web or have web experience or went to school for like specifically web. They haven't done art. They don't do art. They don't touch art. They don't touch the engine. They just do UX. They work on flow paths. They don't even do A/B testing sometimes because the system doesn't have A/B testing capabilities like you would in web design. So all I have to say is it really just depends on the company. It also depends on the game. Live service is very different from a boxed product, right? Like for a boxed product, you're probably going to work on that product for a few years before it actually hits the market. And when it hits the market, you can't change it. That's it. It's done. It's over. It's gone. For some, that's great. It's relieving. For some, that's stressful because with a live product, you can put out something in there or put out something in the market, test it, see if it works, and validate if what you've designed is actually working. Like my Dior door that didn't work because McDonald's was obviously the choice. But you can put it out there, verify it, test it, you'll get feedback, and then you can go back and do the design again. So it really just depends on, like, again, what the product is, what the company is. And when you do that, you can start to tailor like your experiences, your portfolio. And what I've done with the UX designers on my team, because they haven't worked on box products or web or anything, I encourage them to take on web products on the web design products on the side. Just see how you can design something for web. Even though I know you want to be in games, design something in web and see like what the differences are, what the familiarities are, and what's transferable or not. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Got one more question over here.
Hi, it's Marco. I'm the McDonald's guy. Thanks for sharing your approach and your experience. And a question I have is, during when you work as a UX designer, in what point of your approach do you tackle accessibility features for, could be also languages, working with different fonts, but also could be navigation with different controllers or different input types that also maybe allow to use the UI for people who don't have access to a keyboard or a normal controller or a visual impediment or something like that. At what point do you think about it, and if it's already in a gray boxing, or is it much later as an afterthought, which often happens in my experience, and it's kind of hard to work with then? What you would say?
Oh, you're saying everything I was going to say. I'm like, so most of the projects that I've worked on, it was like an afterthought. I was like, hey, what about accessibility? And we're like, oh yeah, let's add it. And we're like, the code doesn't allow that, so we can't do accessibility anymore. So I like new projects because of that, because then you can start to establish like where you think about accessibility. Right now I'm doing it in Graybox, just as I showed up there. I will put a literal icon on there, or something that just says, this is touch input. This is a virtual cursor. This is how we're going to tackle accessibility, because then you get it in the front before the engineers get to it. And then they can start thinking about those things as they're building the Graybox stuff. They can start to build in the features that support that. And then it's also like the settings. I'm a huge settings person. Like if you allow players to have settings to all of the things that we're building, right? Like, because we piecemeal and we build all of these things together in engine and code. Everything has some line something that attaches it to something. And we can expose that to users. And so if you put it in settings and you expose those things to users early on in the process, you can kind of, and I'm still testing this out because this is new project stuff I'm telling you about. I can't show you any of it, but this is how I'm approaching it now. It's like, let's do it in the front, in the beginning of the process. Let's do it in grayscale. Let's test it out before we get too far and it's an afterthought and we can't add it in there anymore. So to answer your question, in the beginning and not in the end.
Yeah, for sure. Would you save Flash if you could go back?
No. I've been using it for the last, 6 years at Psionics. Prior to that, I feel like I've been using Flash all my life. It just will not get away from me. I've been trying to get into, so we use Unreal Engine 5, which is phenomenal in comparison to Flash. Flash itself is not a bad program at all. It's now Animate, and you can do a lot of really cool things in there. The communication between Animate and the game engines is horrible, and you lose so much fidelity between the two, and that's really the only reason why I'd rather use something else. I don't know if you had the chance, but check out Rive downstairs. It has almost everything that I would want in a UI UX software, except for the prototyping part, and I told them about that, so hopefully they'll get it done. But it doesn't have the prototyping, but everything else is. That's what I would imagine software to do for UI. Cool. No more questions? Thank you, all of you, for coming.